Now this decided to reach out to average Russians and get them to react to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I find this very interesting for a number of reasons. First of all, I don't even know exactly how they got the footage. They were taking a risk even recording regular people on the street because the fact of the matter is there's been a colossal crackdown on so-called fake news in Russia where they're punishing people with up to 3 years in prison and 5 years in prison and 15 years in prison if you question what Russia's doing. All the independent media outlets have been shut down. And then, of course, there's a similar thing happening in the West that we've talked about where there's been sort of a purge of the pro-Russian government perspective. So, but this gives you a little bit of insight into just what average Russians are thinking. Now, I don't know if this video was recorded before or after you had like every sanction under the sun unleashed on the Russian economy. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and take a look and then I'll react.
Ввел в Украину войска, и они сейчас бомбят русскоязычные города, Киев, Харьков. Вот у нас есть несколько кадров оттуда.
Пойдем.
Я за Путина. Я хочу вам показать несколько.
Я за Путина.
Я поняла.
Даже не буду смотреть фотографии.
Ну вот это вот
ничего этому не.
Я города, Харьков, Киев. Нет, ну расскажите о своей позиции.
Я за Путина. Я за Путина, я во всем за него.
Да, Киев никто не бомбит, я этому не верю.
Зачем он положил 500 человек уже своих? Зачем? Не знаем. Да ну его на.
Не знаю, по новостям другое говорят. Я не слышу, что Путин ввел войска специально для войны. Это Зеленский все делает. И американцы.
Может за это быть какая-то опасность, поэтому я лучше воздержусь от этого. Я просто за мир и все. Мне не хочется войны.
Действиям жизнь простых граждан. На нас уже наложены санкции, от нас уже отказываются множество стран, с которыми мы сотрудничали, могли бы дальше сотрудничать и продолжать жить. Но, к сожалению, этого не получается сделать из-за того, как наш президент и верхушка ведут себя в чужой стране.
Превентивный удар, он всю жизнь, да, тысячи жизней, это правда, это горько, это больно. А что вы прикажете делать? Ждать, пока на нас нападут?
Наверное, умный человек и знает, что делает, поэтому у меня нету какого-то негатива к этому. Значит, так надо. Вот это мое мнение, значит, мы же никак повлиять на это все не можем. Мне тоже не нравится вся эта ситуация. Не думайте, что нам это все нравится, потому что я понимаю, что и санкции ведут, и все равно, получается, будет бить по нашим карманам. То есть это и инфляция, и какие-то, и безработица та же самая. Но, значит, надо так. Вот тут у меня только мое мнение такое, что, значит, будем терпеть, надо.
That was fascinating. You got answers all over the map there. That last one I find particularly interesting because she's giving like every answer at once. So she says, look, I think Putin's a smart guy, but what does it even really matter what I think? Because I have no impact on it anyway. So there's like a little bit of a, yeah, I support him, but do I really live in a country where my opinion even matters? And then she's like, I don't like this situation either. I don't think that we'll like it. It's going to drain our pockets. I'm reading it as I talk to you guys now. I understand the sanctions. There's going to be inflation and unemployment, but it's probably the way it should be. So that last one, like the last one gives you a little bit of everything, but, I almost wonder if the commentary would change if it was, if they didn't have laws that are now on the books there that are like, hey, you can get 3 years or 5 years or 15 years in prison if you like undermine the troops or whatever. We covered the specific language on the show the other day, but you got the ultra-nationalists who basically drink the Russian Fox News equivalence propaganda, and then you have, the people who are nominally more dovish and don't believe the propaganda and have more of a contrarian reaction to a news media that's pushing for war. So the first person was like, I support Putin. I don't even want to look at your pictures. Like, they were trying to show, hey, here's pictures of Ukraine where everybody's getting bombed, and here are the results. And she's like, I'm not going to look at your pictures. I'm not going to look at them because I support Putin in whatever he does. I mean, that almost keep it real. That reminds me of like, videos, if you go to a Trump rally and you talk to them and, you ask them a question. I support Trump in everything he does. And whatever he does, I support him. But that's what that reminds me of. one person said, nobody's bombing Kyiv. I don't believe it. Nobody's bombing Kyiv. Another one said, I saw a little bit of a generational divide too. Like the younger they are, the more they're against the war. But there was one older lady who was like, 500 people died. 500 of our soldiers, she's talking about, Russian soldiers died. And then she said, for what? And then she very flippantly said, to hell with him, talking about Putin. So at least one older person is not believing the propaganda. And I, by the way, I think this sort of, it really is a generational thing, not just in Russia. I think there's a generational thing in general, because you see this in the U.S. too. The older generation is much more likely to be authoritarian, and so they kind of believe the establishment figures more. They kind of believe mainstream media more. And so that's why most of the older people there were like, what are we supposed to do? Like, we're doing what we have to do, essentially, because they're listening to what they're saying on the news and they buy it. Whereas younger people are much more likely to be contrarian and think like, I'm going to question the narrative. So that's the case in Russia. That's the case here, and probably in many other places as well. And then you have one older guy saying it's all on Zelensky and the Americans. Amazing. I'd rather abstain. I'm for peace, not war. That's what a young person said. And then somebody said, it's a preventative blow. Like, what can we do? More of like a middle-aged, leaning to slightly older woman said, look, it's a preventative blow. Like, what are we supposed to do? I mean, it just goes to show you the diversity of opinion. It shouldn't be surprising to anybody, but it should show you the diversity of opinion. And it's yet another good example of, like, probably not a good idea to levy every single sanction possible against them, because a lot of these sanctions are going to hurt regular people. And, I mean, you just saw, I don't know what the breakdown was, 60-40, 50-50, something like that, but a lot of those people are really not for what's happening there. And some of them are on the fence, and you get the sense maybe if it wasn't so authoritarian over there right now, they might be more against it. So those people are innocent, and they do not deserve to bear the brunt of the actions of a criminal imperialist invasion led by Putin. I've given this example before, but if during the illegal Iraq war, the rest of the world levied sanctions on Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, etc., I'd be like, right on, I get it. But if they started levying sanctions where my mom couldn't go to the bank and take out a couple $100, well, then now all of a sudden I'm like, wait. I didn't have anything to do with this. And look, in a situation like that, usually the dynamic, we're 0 for 9 on these crippling sanctions leading to some sort of forced regime change, right? And so what happens usually is when you are sort of under attack, even when it comes to sanctions by a foreign government, all of a sudden you actually start falling in line behind your leader, and you don't blame the leader. You start blaming whoever's levying the sanctions. And so it's actually a way to make Putin more popular, to levy the sanctions against average Russians. And we've gone over, go back and watch every single breaking news video we've done on this conflict. Now we're at the point where the U.S. is totally banning Russian oil and natural gas and coal from getting in here. Now, it only makes up about 8% of our energy market. But, now we have Europe promising that by 2030, they're going to be off of it. They say within a pretty short time period, they're going to get off 2/3 of their natural gas. And that has far-reaching consequences, man. That is imploding the Russian economy. Now, you might say good, but I think good is a very flippant reaction, again, when we're not dealing with just hurting Putin and the oligarchs. I'm all for levying sanctions on Putin and the oligarchs. This goes way above and beyond that. But look, I found this video fascinating. You got opinions that are all over the map. And I'm sure, by the way, some of these opinions, if you kept talking to more Russians, some would be way more hawkish. Some would be like, he should press the nuclear button. But I'm also sure there's others that would be way more in the other direction, where they're like, we should do anything and everything to achieve peace. And what's going on right now is totally and utterly unacceptable. So there you have it. I would have been more interested in the question, why exactly do you think this is happening? Why exactly is Putin invading Ukraine? Because then you probably would have gotten some mind-blowing answers. I think some people would have just flat out said, it's purely defensive. Like, it's purely defensive. NATO was coming after us and they were going to attack us. So he's just protecting us. I'm sure some people would say that. I'm sure some people believe the idea of it's just to do denazification. Like, all we're doing is killing Nazis. I don't see what the problem is here. I thought we all agreed that that's a good thing. I'm sure some people believe that. I'm sure some people would say he wants to resurrect the Russian Empire, and that's why he's doing it. I'm sure some people would say, hey, they just found a lot of gas in Ukraine, a lot of natural gas in Crimea, then he took it. Natural gas in the eastern portion of the country, we're occupying that. Invading now the western portion of the country where there's natural gas as well. Maybe the natural gas has something to do with it. So I'm sure you'd get every answer imaginable. But what would be the most rare is somebody who gives all of those answers and says, hey, maybe to differing degrees, maybe those are all factors. But I think that's probably the most correct take. I think all those things are true. And by the way, I'll plug this video one more time in case any of you are still questioning, like, hey, exactly why is this going down? Like, what's the purpose? Watch the video from Real Life Lore, a channel called Real Life Lore on YouTube. It's about Russia and Ukraine. It dropped maybe, I don't know, week or so ago. It's got like over 12 million views last time I saw, which was a few days ago. It's probably way over that now. And it is the most thorough video I've ever seen, explaining exactly how we got to where we are, why Putin is invading, so on and so forth. It really accounts for all the different factors. I mean, he tries his best to take out any sort of political bias that he may have. And it just strikes me as a very objective retelling of the way everything unfolded. So anyway, there you have it. Answers from average Russians. And I said it once, I'll say it again. Putin's got to stop the invasion. He's got to withdraw. But we also need to provide an off-ramp where that becomes possible, because this endless tit-for-tat escalation is more dangerous than anybody realizes. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.